everyone. Welcome in. I'm Jen Mueller, sideline reporter for the team, alongside former running back Robert Turbin. Turbo.
Hey, hey.
And former wide receiver Brian Walters. Brian.
Good to be here.
I'm afraid of how you're holding that microphone. If I could just set the stage for folks. Turbo and I are wearing true broadcasting headsets. Somehow, B. Walt has a microphone as if he is going to do karaoke for us this afternoon.
Honestly, I told our producer NASA, I'm tempted. If I bust out in song, just mute me real quick.
Who's your go-to? What's your go-to karaoke?
I tell everyone the same answer here. I don't divulge that unless you're there. You have to be there in person to experience it.
Is that
I will not give it away. I will not. I have actually been there. I've witnessed it. I might have sung backup. I will not be divulging that. We've got much more to get into today. Look, the conversation is going to focus on the wide receivers and the running backs. You are going to see plenty of Jackson Smith and Jigba on this one. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the running back situation and also just kind of recap some observations from early in camp here. Guys, yesterday was the first time they had a chance to put on pads. For those of you watching, you might not realize how much this has changed. First of all, teams cannot have a padded practice until you have 4 practices to get into the season, and you can only have 16 padded practices, which is a huge difference from, I don't know, 20 years ago when I started going to training camps when guys would go 2-a-days in pads. Can you even imagine that these days?
I'm going to age myself here because Turbo, I don't think you even experienced it, but my rookie year was 2-a-days. 2010 was the last year until the new CBA was signed, and I was doing 2-a-days, and man, it hurt.
Yeah, my last 2-a-days actually was in college. I mean, as far as being full padded 2-a-days, and the rule used to be 3 practices in the league before being able to go full pads. But man, the fact that they've added another day, and there's only 16 total padded practices that you can do. I mean, that's crazy, but I would love it if I was a player.
Well, it's crazy. And look, here's the thing. There is certainly the case to be made for, right? It is a player safety issue. It is saving your body for the regular season. The other side of the conversation is you only have 3 preseason games. You've got less time in pads, which makes to evaluate talent and kind of Brian, just once you get to week 1, it's a shock to your system because nothing is like full speed week 1.
Right, and going back to evaluating talent, you know, for the younger guys trying to make a team, it makes it a lot tougher. There's a lot less reps for them and a lot less chances to show what you can do in pads, you know, and how tough you are. Whereas for the veterans or the guys that know they're going to be here, it's the perfect scenario for them because they're going to go into camp fresh and ready to go. But yeah, come week 1 and you start taking those hits, you remember what this game's all about.
I always think that it's the defense that likes it most when you put the pads on. They've had 0 people to hit for 6.5 months, and they are ready to let loose. But Turbo, you could deliver a pretty big hit. Did you like it or not when the pads came on?
Oh, you love it when the pads come on, man.
For about 5 minutes, right?
Oh, you're playing real football. You know, you get to actually impose your will on another person, even though it's your teammate. It's a good feeling. Defense normally has the advantage when you first put the pads on and you start, but offense gets going after a while.
I was laughing at DK's comment. He wrote somewhere, or he said somewhere, and he says now the defense can't claim everything's a sack or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, they reach out and touch a jersey, and they go sack and plays dead. But now they actually got to finish, and they're going against some guys.
I tell you what, those pass rush drills, though, those heat up once you get some pads on.
Man, I tell you what, every one-on-one drill heats up when you get the pads on. You talk about one-on-one offensive line, defensive line. You're talking about one-on-ones with the wide receivers and DBs. How about one-on-one the linebackers as well? You know, RBs and linebackers, that gets heated in that pass protection one-on-one competition. But that's what the pads, you know, that's what they bring out, man. They bring out the best competition.
And the thing about the Seahawks and Pete Carroll is they're going to be doing one-on-ones every day. You know, there's other camps I've been to. One-on-ones are maybe once a week, twice a week. But Pete loves that competition, loves that one-on-one, and letting guys go at each other.
We're getting a look at the offensive line here. I told these guys before we started the live broadcast that I had a great moment driving in, and then about 5 minutes later, I was really brought down to earth. So I'm driving in this morning, and Richard Sherman pulls up next to me. He's like, "Hey, Jen Mueller, it's good to see you." I'm like, "Oh, Sherm, I love you. It's so good to see you. This is great." And I walk into the building, and I'm like, man, these guys are so special. I mean, I love being here, right? Like, this is great. He's doing dance moves. Tater always does that during practice. And I kind of say that because Bobby Wagner's back, and now he knows what it's like someplace else, and he's back and I think appreciating this a little differently.
All right. There's nothing like a camp here in Seattle. And I mean, even just how intense these bags are. Remember starting practice every day with these bags, and everyone, I mean, when I first got to Seattle, I mean, I was scared to hit the bag. I was scared to, I was, oh, this is, I'm going to make the team, these bags, quick feet. and you realize that, well, it's not about that, but it was just that intense. You know, the coach is yelling at you, harping on you, and you got blitz cheering for you. You're like, I got to go fast. So
I'm telling you, when you're a young player, you don't want to mess anything up, especially the bags at the beginning. You start in the back, first of all, because it's just so you don't screw anything up. Watch the guys in front of you, God, and what you're doing and where you're going.
In theory, these are drills you guys have done your entire lives. I'd like to point that out.
100%.
100%.
Right. But it just feels, it's like the start of practice. You just got done, quote unquote, warming up. It's like the warm up. Like, I don't know, like something about a warm up in an NFL practice, like, doesn't actually get you warm. Like, you don't warm up until you actually get out there and start actually doing drills.
And the last thing you want to do is go out there and kick a bag out of line and have everything stop and have a coach have to push it back and everyone wait for you behind you so they can do their little bag drills.
100%.
I'm getting nervous for these guys out here. Now I'm going to watch that with a different level of intensity. We mentioned Bobby Wagner. It certainly does not look like he has lost a step. He is a future Hall of Famer. He's 33 years old. He has talked about coming back here with a different type of leadership and a different way he can help the guys because he has seen how it's done someplace else. Have you guys seen that on the field at all? Is he the same? Is he different?
No, he's the same. But I think for Bobby, I think, you know, where he talks about being different and having a different approach in his leadership is really navigating guys off the field, like not just an on the field leader, but, you know, what they have going on outside of the game of football. And that's something that's become really important for Bobby as he's progressed throughout his career. He's been very successful off the field, and now he just wants to be able to pass that along to the rest of the guys.
And not only is a leader, but, man, he's an ageless wonder. He still looks good out there. He's still running fast out there. I went and sized him up there on, when was that, Sunday or Saturday was Legends Day, and so we were out there on the field, and I sized him up. I said, B-Wags, man, all right, I won't. We used to play basketball all the time, right? And he used to just back me down and just turn and just like dunk it or lay it up. I was like, all right, I'm not matching up against you anymore. But he's just, just a freak athlete.
Yeah, he is.
He certainly is. There's been some pretty impressive athletic feats on the practice field so far. We've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, who has recorded, I think, probably the best catch of camp. And before we get to that conversation, let me just update a couple of things. We have seen Jackson on the field, who we have not seen on the field yet, running backs-wise, and this is what we're keeping an eye on. Zach Charbonneau is dealing with a shoulder injury. Now, it doesn't seem like, listening to Pete, that this is going to be much of an issue, although we don't have a whole lot of details and information around that. The other one is Ken Walker, who's dealing with some sort of a groin issue. I did talk to Ken today as they were walking off of the walkthrough practice field, and I said, look, is this something I should be concerned about? Like, what is happening? He had the biggest smile on his face. He said, don't you worry. I'm straight. I'm going to be back on the field. Guys, how does not having those two on the field either open the door for other people or give you a level of concern?
Well, it's impactful for them not to be there just because they're your two lead backs. But I think, the good thing about it is you're not dealing with anything overly serious, so you can expect them to be back and be able to, obviously perform at a high level. But, when you're a young football player, B. Walt, and you can let me know if you agree with this or not, like, every opportunity at practice is really important. Like, OTAs and those opportunities to be able to get reps, to be able to, continuously recognize defenses and have to adjust on the fly. And, those things are really important to your development as a young player. So when you're not out there on the field, it can kind of hinder some of that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess the worst thing would be him trying to get out there early. And, those groins are very, very fragile, right? And the worst thing, the thing that Seahawks don't want is him to go out there and re-hurt it and just be delayed another week or two. So they're doing the right thing, being very careful with it. But you're right. As a young guy, you want to be out there. You want to show your teammates that you're there every day going, because, you haven't earned your stripes yet. You haven't earned that Veterans Day off. You haven't earned that time to get that recovery because you're the young guy. You're legs are going, and you want to show that you can be that everyday guy.
Yeah. Well, the other positive thing though is that it does open doors for other people to get opportunities, to be able to get those reps and take advantage of that. We know DJ Dallas has been on this team his entire career, heading into year number 4. He's made a ton of plays. He's actually the veteran in the room right now, and he's only in his 4th year, which kind of tells you how young the room is. But, think about another rookie, Kenny McIntosh, coming in out of Georgia, and he's going to be able to get more reps now. And it gives the coaches really a good idea and like a heavy evaluation of, who this person really is as a player.
Well, and let's frame this conversation as part of the bigger picture with what the Seahawks want to do on offense, right? Because individuals, I love to project what they're going to do, and I can't wait to see what Ken Walker does after rushing for over 1,000 yards last year and not being the number 1 back in week 1. Rashad Penny had some great games before he was injured and put up a lot of yards, and yet Ken was able to come in, and you could tell by the end of the year he had figured it out. He was dancing a little too much early. He had figured it out. But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at last year's numbers, as a team, 12 rushing touchdowns, 30 passing touchdowns for Geno Smith. Now, I love what Geno did, but do you think, Turbo, let's start with you, that's the ratio that Pete wants? Or do you think he'll take it because it was efficient last year?
No, I think he'll take it. I think that's a good balance of what they were able to produce last year from running and passing. If you think about it, as far as if you look at each game, there was always, for the most part, a pretty good balance of passing attempts and rushing attempts. And, it's a lot harder to run for touchdowns than it is to throw for touchdowns, especially when you're throwing the ball all across the yard. But I think Coach is satisfied with that kind of balance and that sort of statistic heading into this season.
How did the pass game help with that, B-Wald? You had enough weapons that it did offer a more balanced attack than we had seen in recent years.
Well, I think that's the thing. You look at the wide receiver position group, and those are your athletes. That's your veterans. That's your leaders right there at the wide receiver position with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Those guys are the face of the Seahawks, right? When you look at who the Seahawks are, DK is going to stick out. Tyler Lockett is going to stick out, and you have to get those guys involved, and it might lead to some more passes than what we're used to from the Seahawks, right? Pete's always been run. I want to run the ball. I want to power, but they're just making adjustments for what they have, and you can't let those guys just go out there and block 2-3 plays in a series and try to throw a 3rd down and 10 or something for a 1st down. You got to use your weapons and get the ball in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking wide receivers and running backs on Seahawks training camp Training Camp Live, powered by Boeing. A couple of numbers from last year. The run game was averaging 4.8 yards a carry. That was tied for the 5th highest in the league. They rushed for just over 2,000 total yards. In that passing game, we did see Geno, efficient quarterback in the league, 50 passing plays of 20 or more yards. That was about middle of the pack. If you want a marker of who was leading the league, it's not going to surprise you. It was Kansas City with 73 of those plays. So that's what we're looking at last year. B-Walt, let's continue the conversation about wide receivers because DK said something that was really interesting yesterday. And he said, we've got weapons all over the field that we can finally utilize. Now, he's talking about certainly Jackson, the draft pick, but also D. Eskridge, who was almost forgotten about in these conversations. And Derek Young came on last year as a special teamer, but I think when we watched him, even in training camp last year, he was really fluid. He fit into this group. What do you think DK meant when he said it like that?
I'm taking the wide out. I don't think he is even referring to just the wide receivers there. You go to every single position group on this offense or the playmakers or whatever, and you have a weapon everywhere. The tight ends. The tight ends. Geno said it the other day that that's the core group, right? The tight ends are the guys that have, been there, that they're solid. You got Will, you got Noah, you got Colby. They've been around for years. And then you have the wideouts who we all know. Tyler Lockett's probably the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL. That's a big talk, and it's going around all national media. Everyone is even agreeing with that. So to me, that makes him not as underrated because he's getting recognition for it, right?
Because he's being called underrated, so they're still not acknowledging him, yeah.
But you look at, let's go to the wide receivers, and what DK means is you look at all those, let's say those 5 guys are the ones on the roster, right? You know Locke, you know DK, you know JSN, and then, the 4 and 5 spots you would say are up for battle, right? D. Eskridge and Derek Young's probably to lose. But you take those guys, and let's say D. Eskridge, if he is healthy and he can perform, he could step into any one of those roles. He can be that perfect slot backup to JSN. He can be in there and be a playmaker, right? And that's what you get as you get the depth for these wideouts is these guys can fill in. Derek Young, I was watching him run routes the other day. Man, he's smooth. He's a big man, and his routes were crisp. I would argue he had the crispest routes out there on just watching routes on air. And so you look at that, and you wouldn't be afraid to have any of them have to fill in if their name's called upon.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, DK feels like, now teams can't just key on Tyler Lockett and I. Like, if you do, you're still in trouble because there's playmakers with experience now at other spots. K9's not a rookie anymore, right? He's a guy that's rushed over 1,000 yards in this league now. You know what I mean? So he's a real threat. Some of these other guys have experience in these in games. Derek Young has made plays, 50-50 balls is something that he's really great at. And so, I think DK is just, he's smiling cheek to cheek because he knows, like, when this offense steps on the field, we're going to be really difficult to stop.
Well, and I really like how these assignments could go, right? I love Tyler Lockett and his reliability on third down. I would prefer not to see Lockett working out of the slot, and I would prefer it's Jackson that goes in there, right, who prides himself on making those tough catches. So now if I've got 2 speedsters running down the sidelines, not only do I like that Tyler is kept out of the traffic in the middle of the field, but what I'd actually like to see is a few more of those explosive plays, right? Let's just make it easy. And just every once in a while, just drop a 40 or 50 yarder in there because we know that Geno has the arm, right?
Yeah, just every once in a while.
Just every once in a while. Like, it's so easy. Well, look, we were watching some of the big guys up front. Here is one of the things that I am most excited about. You talk about how K9 isn't a rookie. Guess what? There is a huge class of second-year players that got significant playing time last year. Only Houston had more rookies make starts than Seattle did, and they got such significant playing time. When you look at the body of Charles Cross and Abe Lucas at your tackle spots, they just look different. So, yeah, I know that it's a bit of a stretch to say, just drop a 45-yard bomb down there. I do think that they have the capability of doing it with the guys up front.
Oh, 100%. And you've seen this offensive line get better and better through every single year. I know it was maybe the weak point of the teams, for a little bit of years there. But, last year, it's one of the best in the NFL, and these guys are just going to get better. And I think they have upgraded in the middle. I think that they have now some experience, and they have some guys that can take over and really fill that spot for, 10 years to come. Yeah. And so Geno's got to be licking his chops out there, just sitting in that pocket, just knowing that he's not going to have a ton of pressure on him. He's going to be able to pick the defense apart.
Well, and you got to think that as a running back too, Turbo, right?
Yeah, 100%. For a team who was second in the league as far as rookies in their playing time, and you think about the success that came out of that for the Seahawks. It only spills out a bright future for this team. I'm really excited about this team this year because I think there's a maturity level that's really developed within this team from last year to this year. And then you look at the balance, with the young players, guys in their second year, and then veteran players as well. That balance, that mix, I think is really perfect for, how this team is approaching this year.
How much does Geno, as a second-year starter here, affect this offense? Because one of the things Bobby Wagner said yesterday was there's more confidence when he makes the checks. It's not just the check that he's making, it's also the way he's communicating that. How much does that make a difference?
It's huge. It's huge.
But in what way? Like, how would you make a check and communicate that in a way that or better communication than others?
You have less, you're second guessing yourself less. So as a quarterback, you know you're in command. But, when you're early in the system or you're young in the system or it's your first year in the system like it was for Geno last year as a starter, like you may get out to the line of scrimmage, you may see something, you may want to check it, but you second guess yourself because it's like, I don't know if coach gave me that permission yet, or I don't know if I really have the ability to do that yet. So it's a confidence thing. But when you go into your second year and you have a full off season, you're watching film from last year, you're chopping it up with your coach, you're talking about things that you liked, things that you didn't like. You say, hey, man, when we ran this play, I thought about checking to a run here. But I was uncomfortable with it because I know how you would think about it. And coach can respond and say, man, if you feel like you want to check this something, man, check it. And that gives you that confidence now. So you're going into a second year as a starter in the system, you feel like you have more control, more command to be able to do things that you're comfortable with on the fly when you see it out there on the field.
Yeah, and let's remember, last offseason was who's going to start. Is it going to be Drew? Is it going to be Geno? We don't know, and that was the talk of it. And as a quarterback or as any player in that situation, a position battle, there is a slight hesitancy, right? That you're going to do something that the coaches don't like, or it might backfire on you. So you're just you're going to do what's comfortable and what let's just say he's been given the keys this year, right? The keys are his. He can drive wherever he wants. Like, take it, where maybe last year he might have been, driving someone else's car.
Right.
Being careful. He's kind of just kind of going. I'm not going to do anything crazy here. So that's where we're at.
I drive other people's cars all the time, people. And I don't show that kind of hesitancy. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty confident behind the wheel of just about any car.
All right, noted. Never let Jen drive my car.
Can I drive your car is a great, great fun game for me to play. Hey, you are listening to all of our notes on the Seahawks training camp. You can join us. You can make your own notes and observations. The 2023 countdown to kickoff continues with Seahawks training camp powered by Boeing. This year, the Seahawks are hosting a special Seahawks Football Fest at Lumen Field. Be there Friday, August 4th for a mock game, live music, food trucks, and more. Plus, stick around post-practice when players will be tossing autographed footballs into the stands. Tickets, they are just $20. So hurry, get them now for this unique, fun Seahawks Football Fest. You get your tickets by going to Seahawks.com/training camp. That's when folks can join us on Friday. The conversation continues around running backs, wide receivers, what this offense looks like. When you think about this running back group, you know that K9 is going to be your number one back.
Yeah.
How does everybody else fit in? And do you think DJ Dallas is your number 2 or your number 3 back? Because without Travis Homer, and I know we saw DJ quite a bit in that third down back situation. Where does this all fit in? Because I need a third down guy that can pass pro and get me a couple of yards here.
Yeah, it's a really great question, Jen, and it'll play itself out, throughout training camp and the preseason. But, looking at it right now, I still think Zach Charbonnet is your number 2 guy. His ability to really understand defense, I think, he has a really high IQ for the game of football. I could really see him plugging in to that third down role, especially as it pertains to pass protection. He did it really well at UCLA. But DJ Dallas, he's been in this system. He knows it really well. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him in some situational moments in third down as well, especially when it comes to, the screen game, passing out of the backfield. He runs a great wheel route. We've seen him make a ton of plays.
He is also running a little heavier this year than last by design. How much would that ever make a difference? Like, I look at that and I'm like, look, I can put on 10 pounds, no problem. So this does not seem to be a big deal for me. But for a running back to put on a little bit of weight and to run, nobody got my joke there, guys. I appreciate you just leaving the joke about my weight alone. But how much difference does that make? Because it's not like he was a small back.
Yeah, I got to be honest about this, Jen. I'd have to talk to him to figure out, exactly his reasoning behind wanting to be bigger, but that's not always the answer at running back. Running back is really like a lot of positions. It's about movement. And if you want to put on weight, that's great, but as long as it doesn't impact the way that you move, the way that you're able to make guys miss, I think a lot of times as a back, we get so caught up in the physicality of the position, wanting to break tackles, wanting to run guys over and things like that, that we miss the fluidity of the position, the movement, and making guys miss, which is really what it's all about. That's why great backs like Chris Johnson, guys who don't have a lot of size, can still be great in the league because of their ability to just move. And so it's not always the answer, but if he feels like maybe in short yardage situations, which that's the area he struggled in, last year, getting a yard, getting 2 yards, if he feels like that helps him a little bit better, then I can understand that thinking.
Turbo, did you lose weight as the season went, or did you maintain it pretty good?
I was able to maintain, but one of the things that I did notice as a back is, like, I came in the league at 220, right? a little over 220 pounds, and my best years, though, were when I was between 214 and 216. I was about 5 or 6 pounds lighter, and I thought I needed to be 220 running back, and it was just like physical, but it impacted my movement just slightly, especially laterally. So I played better lighter than I did heavier.
Yeah, because I always wonder, going into the season, maybe you guys want to put 5-10 pounds, because during training camp and throughout the season, you will probably end up going down a little bit and getting to your right play weight by the time that the season starts.
Yeah, that's the mindset for a lot of guys. I was one of those lucky guys. I was able to maintain. But I see your point there, though.
I got to be honest. My approach is the opposite. I need my lowest weight going into training camp because it's only going to get worse as the fall goes on. I mean, like, that's what happens every year. Kenny McIntosh and the running backs room, you talk about your ability to move, your lateral movement. He talked to the media today. I thought it was interesting. He likes being shifty. He likes being twitchy. And at Georgia, he would try to do what the wide receivers were doing. He's also known as a guy who's got good hands and can run some of those routes. Where do you think he fits into this mix?
Well, I think he'll get some opportunities to be able to make some plays, catch the ball in the backfield. One of the things that I really admired about, Pete Carroll and just his system is, if you're a player, you got talent, he's going to find a way to get you out there on the field to be able to situations that you're comfortable in. And that's why you see so much consistency with the Seahawks, right? Because, like, yes, there's a system, but there's a system within the system, which is, let's put our players in the best position for them to be successful, depending on what their skill set is. And so Kenny McIntosh, with a dynamic skill set, they'll find a way to get him some plays out there.
Going to wrap this up here in just a few minutes. What excites you most when you think about all the factors we've talked about today?
I think the fact that now they have a number 3 that you can rely on. It's going to take a lot of pressure off Tyler Lockett and DK, because, they had about 45% of the targets last year. So, they won't argue that. They want as many targets as they want, but just to take that pressure off and to show more playmakers out there, it's going to single them up on the outside a little more. You have JSN in there, who has been all over camp. I mean, he is no short of amazing so far. Has impressed everybody, and you see why the Seahawks picked him in the first round there, because he's all over the place. He's diving. He's making. You see him just loving the game. No questions about the hamstring last year. That is gone, and he's coming in not looking like a rookie yet.
Yeah, we've seen him just a little bit in practice today. You can see him and the entire team at Lumen Field on Friday, August 4th for the mock game. Go to Seahawks.com/training camp to get your tickets. We are going to wrap up for today. We don't want to give away any secrets before the season starts.